progressing research trends in clinical microbiology. And the session is going to be presented by Dr. Rahul Warke. So we will start the session shortly. Just wait. Please stay tuned here. If you have any question or clarification with any steps or any area, then definitely you can just put your clarification over Q&A tab, and we will convey a question with the speaker, and you will get answered then. Even you can raise your hand, we will allow to talk, and you can directly ask your clarification or question with the speaker. Yes, sir. Now it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, now it's fine. Great. Really, it's great. So, sir, I'm audible. My voice is clear to you?
Yes, it is clear, and I hope my voice is also audible.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, sir. So, can we start now?
Yes, I'm good to start.
Yeah, so we'll just start with the intro talk. So, good afternoon to all. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all of you presented here for today's live session on progressing research trends in clinical microbiology. The session is in association with High Media Laboratories Private Limited. With a presence in more than 140 countries, High Media is among us the top 3 brands in microbiology in the world. High Media, a company established by professionals and technologists for manufacturing high-quality culture media for microbiology, has over the years created a rich portfolio of exemplar quality products. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing you to the Director, Research and Development Microbiology, High Media Laboratories Private Limited, Dr. Rahul G. Warke. So, Dr. Rahul G. Warke is a well-known scientist and expert in international business marketing and Director of Research and Development Wing of Microbiology Business at High Media Laboratories. He completed his master's as well as his doctoral research in microbiology from Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. Later, he enrolled as a researcher in the Biological Warfare Program of the US Navy and continued working with the Department of Cellular Injuries, Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, Maryland, USA. During his academic and research tenure, he worked in various aspects of microbiology. Since his return to India in the year 2004, Dr. Rahul has developed an entire range of animal-free microbiological media, which has found application in vaccine and biopharma industry at a global level. He has been instrumental in introducing a fully automated plant for the manufacturing of ready-prepared media in India, a venture pioneered in India to fulfill rising demands of such media. So, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today. So, let's start the session. Over to you, Dr. Rahul, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words and introduction. So good afternoon, everybody, and I'm sorry that this is on a Saturday afternoon time for you to spend somewhere else, but I really appreciate for you to come and attend this talk. I hope I will try to make it more interesting and informative. As we know that we all are coming out, I don't know if we are still coming out or we are out or we are still in a pandemic, but as our government says and as ICMR says that we are doing better than most of the people all over the world. And thanks to the way most of the people, the frontline workers, the COVID warriors who have worked, helped people, and we all definitely know for sure that the death rates have gone down and fatality has tremendously under control. So even if we have patients, we have now enough supply of medical drugs and hospitals, and so the government has done a fantastic job, and we should thank our government for this. So the reason I brought this pandemic up is because this has become a new normal for all of us, working away from our friends, working away from our colleagues, sitting at home. And everybody now knows these words, such as pandemic. These were the words which we as microbiologists had studied in our textbooks and in our research book during our studies as microbiologists. So now everybody knows what a pandemic is. Everybody knows what a virus is. Everybody knows how a sampling of a virus is done. So this has basically changed the way people were neglecting infectious diseases. Now, infectious diseases has become a mainstream part of medicine in India. It has come in late. We are very late, and enough damage has been caused in our country by infectious diseases, especially when you look at multi-drug resistant bacteria. And so much so that a lot of surgeons are now have become desperate. They say they lose their patients not because of the surgery or because of the failure of the surgery, but they lose their patient because of infections. And this is increasing at a very alarming rate. So after this pandemic, there has been a good control on nosocomial infection in most of the hospitals. But this is again a very short period which we should be our country would enjoy. But we are soon going to go back to this big outbreak which is ongoing for many decades now and which is getting worse day by day. So as microbiologists, it's our responsibility to aware, make the clinicians aware, and what better can you make them aware by giving them information, showing them statistics. Now to show them this data, the statistics, what is important is how we can identify, culture these bacteria, maintain these bacteria, study these bacteria. And as I speak, on the 3rd of March, our health minister gave a very important message, which I will show you, which I'll show you in the next slides. But now, MDR, that is multi-drug resistance, has become one of the top 10 global disease, and it is being addressed very seriously. Of course, in the West, it has a better control as compared to our country because various reasons is easy access, affordable access to antibiotics, no regulation on the administration of antibiotics, no regulation on the sale of antibiotics. So this has caused a big problem in today's society. So as High Media, we've been around for more than 45 years in India and now globally. We've been so clinical microbiology has been a very important part of our product portfolio, right from product development to giving services to helping identify newer pathogens to helping develop newer easy techniques, right from sampling to identification and maintenance of pathogens. So today I will be speaking mostly about how a little bit of brief on what the typical clinical microbiology, how it is carried out. I won't go much in detail because I understand that you all are microbiologists and you all have some exposure to the basics. But we as a media manufacturing company, I will speak a little bit more about the media aspect, and then we have some new technologies which we have brought in and developed, partnered with, which are also now at the forefront of clinical microbiology globally. So let me start. As I mentioned before, there is a huge increase of antimicrobial resistance, and I will go to the next slide because this I already spoke about. In this slide, I will just play this video. So basically, on the 3rd of March, 3 days ago, the Union Minister of Science and Technology and our Health Minister, Dr. Harsha Vardhan, inaugurated this session of Global Bio India 2021. So during this valedictory function on 3rd March, he mentioned that from striving to become a US 150 billion industry by 2025, taking global lead in tackling antimicrobial resistance, our biotech sector holds enormous potential to drive India's growth. So now there are two aspects to this. So let me first play the video and then we can discuss more after the video.
Today we are also releasing the Indian priority pathogen list. We in fact just now released it with the main objectives of guiding the prioritization of research on antimicrobial resistance, including incentives and funding. Also to help align R&D priorities with Indian public health needs, and also to support India's leadership in containment of antibiotic resistant bacteria. Antimicrobial resistance AMR is one of the top 10 global health threats faced by the world today and can have a major impact on the economy, society, food safety, and public health. Infections caused by antibiotic resistant pathogens substantially amplify the burden of both healthcare associated and community acquired infections. To minimize the emergence and spread of antimicrobial resistance, coordinated actions are required at the global, national, and the sub-national levels.
So that was our honorary minister, Dr. Harshavardhan. So from this, we have to take away a few very important points. First, and the most important point is, as microbiologists, our role has suddenly become important again. Second, that this has a global impact on the economy. And as I mentioned before, that how clinicians are struggling trying to deal with routine surgeries and routine problems in their hospitals. But very importantly is to identify and get the support has become a challenge. So when the penicillin was invented 100 years ago, not 100, almost 80 years ago, the world thought that we now have a super drug to take care of all the infections. But now today we have the super bugs, which don't have any effect over from these super drugs. So how can we tackle this problem is by first trying to identify that which pathogens or which bacteria we need to tackle, we are dealing with. So there are so many. I mean, we will touch through a few of them, but before we get to what MDR or multi-drug resistance, I will go through a few basics on. So this whole process starts from. So let us get into the basics of. So if you look at a typical clinical microbiology process, patient with an infection is identified. He is either in the hospital or he comes to the clinic or he comes to a pathology lab. He's sampled. Second, his sample comes to the clinical. It needs to be, if it is sampled in the hospital or outside the hospital, it needs to arrive up into a proper microbiology or infectious diseases lab. So transportation and storage is very important. Third, once a sample comes into a lab, a microbiology lab, there is various aspects to it. So there is microscopy, there is preliminary report given by the physician on microscopy, then there is use of culture media for isolation, identification, and then there is the final report by the physician depending on after identification if there is an antibiotic sensitivity to be carried out, and thus the final report is given by the physician. So we as High Media or as media manufacturing company, our role starts from here. So culture media is used for sampling and labeling, sampling and transporting. I'm sorry, and storage. Storage is very critical. So if a sample is drawn in a remote suburb of Maharashtra and it needs to be brought into a bigger city which has a whole setup for identification, antibiotic sensitivity studies, and transportation and the storage of the sample becomes very important because this bacteria have to stay viable and alive till it reaches the laboratory. And then finally, when it arrives in the lab, it has to be cultured, it has to be seen whether it is viable, and then further studies are carried out, such as identification, antibiotic sensitivity. So in a broad, if you broadly categorize the microbial media requirements, they are from transport to transport and preservation. And there is basal media enrichment. So once the transport comes in, the sample has to be enriched. Second is isolation of the causative agent. It is very important because when you collect a sample from a human being, it's usually a mix of more than few different bacteria. Uh, and it is very important that you should be able to pick this needle in the haystack. So isolation of that needle is always a challenge. And of course, there are many international guidelines laid down. There are guidelines laid down in India where you can do this. How you do this is all known to us. So media plays a very important role in the isolation. Once you have isolated that, yes, this is my pathogen of study, then you have to differentiate it, because you're again trying to see on a plate, you will be able to differentiate it from the other organisms growing in the microflora. And after that, all this has been established, then you go in for the antibiotic sensitivity, and that is most critical part where everything gets missed, because a lot of clinicians take for granted that if this is a Pseudomonas infection, I'm going to give this antibiotic and finish it. Very few doctors, and that also goes to the patients, they don't want to wait for that 72-hour period and get an antibiotic sensitivity done. Antibiotic sensitivity is the main cause why this widespread multi-drug resistance has occurred. Very few patients are doing this, very few doctors are doing this. They just start taking some antibiotic which they feel has worked for them in the last disease they had or the last infection they had, and they continue taking the same antibiotic. Now, if the pattern has changed, and as we know, most of these, especially upper respiratory tract infections, they spread in a society, or they spread in a area depending on the weather in that condition. So a certain populations, children going to the same school, people going to the same offices, they catch the same infection. So there is a trend, and that trend has to be identified, which comes under the study of epidemiology, which is a very under expressed, or I would say under utilized faculty in our country, which needs much more focus, especially when it comes to this kind of study, multi-drug resistance. This we do a lot of epidemiological study for viruses. For example, if there is a mosquito or a malaria outbreak, then there is a proactive role of the epidemiological departments. If there is a viral outbreak, of course, COVID is something out of proportion, but if there is a waterborne outbreak, then there is involvement. But we need much more proactive involvement of epidemiological studies, where these people can gather data, store the data, and come up with trends at what if a certain population, if a certain city had a very dominant infection at 1 year, if it is occurring again next year, then they should be able to see that which drug was effective last year, what is the sensitivity pattern of that new isolate, and accordingly administer that. And this information, and in today's information world, sharing this information should not be very difficult, because there are so many channels on social media where they can share information, and doctors should be ready to get this information and act accordingly, which is most of the time neglected. And so usually a doctor would send a sample to a pathology lab or a microbiology lab after he is completely exhausted with all his options of antibiotics administered. After after the second, third generation of antibiotics don't work, they go in for the fourth, and after that they will send a sample, and then they are desperate. And by the time the patient is completely deteriorating, and it is very difficult for the doctor to revive these patients. So I will let's get into the transport sample, how it is critical. So the collection of sample is very important, and I think now everybody knows after COVID that how collection of sample is becoming critical. When the epidemic started, they were sampling the nose as well as the throat. So when it comes to bacterial infections, we as microbiologists know that there are so many places where the infections can arise from and can be sampled from. So I won't go into the details of the swab, But I will talk about the media, because media plays a very critical role in the sampling process, because since it needs to be transported. So as per WHO guidelines, which says that a bacteria or the virus should survive in the transport media for 72 hours, that is something which we check for and we test for. So here there are two parts to this. The media is not a very nutritive media, and then you will say, so why don't you make it nutritive so that we can skip the process of enrichment? So if you make it very nutritive, and let's say you've taken an ear swab or a nose swab, here you will have at least 300 to 400 different types of bacteria present. And the moment it goes into a very enriched transport medium, all these bacteria will start growing. The purpose of a transport medium is to keep them viable. It should not grow in there. There should be enough nutrients for them to survive, but not to grow. Because if they grow, then those bacteria which are not the pathogen might increase, and the pathogens will get missed out when you go in for the sampling. So the design of this media is done in such a way that the bacteria or the pathogen which we are looking for is alive along with the other bacteria, which later on will be dealt with when it comes to the laboratory. So we have a bunch of swabs, and I'm sure you all have access to our catalog, where you'll be able to see, depending on the sample, depending on the area which has to be sampled, stool sample, urethral sample, nasal, throat swabs. All these we have sampling devices and kits. The second option is the second product. Second important media is a basal media. Now, bacterial. So we have different medias. Now, once you get these samples into the lab, you have to cultivate these bacteria. You have to culture them. So we have basic 85 different basal media, and when you add different supplements, the permutations and the combinations are exponential, and the number is raised to the power n, depending on what organism you want to grow and depending on what supplement you make. So the classical ones like general cultivation bacteria, then we have bacteria for specific such as Brucella, Campylobacter, then blood culturing organisms, fungal. Then there are cultivation of sensitive, fragile microbes like the Mycoplasma. Then specific group of organisms like coliforms, lipolytic bacteria, etc. So I won't go into much details, but we have a category of 85 different basal medias, which depending on how we made into either sensitive, resistant, sensitivize them or make them resistant for growing certain kind of bacteria. So then there is the enriched media. So once you have crossed the first step of getting into the choice of media, then you have to enrich these pathogens. And again, we have a whole array of these enrichment media where you can grow and enrich them. And once you have enriched them, then you go to the next option, which is the selective media. So in the selective media, this is where the real challenge comes in how to choose the right media to grow a certain bacteria or certain pathogen. So by this time, as a microbiologist, you have a certain idea, either using basic two things. First is the clinical symptoms, which gives you an idea that what we are looking in for. The second is microscopically also you are aware that, okay, I'm looking in for, let's say, mycobacterium. So then you know that this sample or the sputum sample which I'm processing, I have to culture it further, because the reason we need this selective media is we need to culture these organisms, since we have to perform antibiotic sensitivity. And so we choose this selective media, we grow our organism on it, and then after growing it, we go in for a differential media. On the differential media, you have the capacity of the media to differentiate between different kinds of bacteria. For example, this is the most simple one. Example I'll give is MacConkey's agar. On a MacConkey's agar, you have lactose fermenting and non-fermenting. Depending on that, you can differentiate Salmonella and other different species of Salmonella and Shigella and other E. coli on the same media. So with this, let me go ahead and talk of things about a few specialized uh, organisms and specialized media, or the problems which we are facing today are much more acute as compared to the times of Salmonella and McConkey's agar, or even going ahead, basic dysentery and diarrhea. Today we have, so let me talk about this new organism called as Candida auris. Now, Candida auris was first reported in 2009 in Japan, and why this is something very important is because this can lead to systemic infection and is also fatal. And in 2019, for the first time, in 2018, for the first time, we had an outbreak in India of this. And it was not just localized to one geography. I mean, one state or one city. This sprang up in multiple cities in India. I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, but only those places which had a proper microbiology setup, like all those hospitals which had a proper microbiology setup, were able to identify these and collect the samples. So a lot of these came to us, High Media, and asked us that can we work on C. auris and give them something which is easy to identify. Because the problem of C. auris, Candida auris, is that it is always misidentified with Candida hemoloni and Candida sake. So, and the most alarming part of this Candida auris is that it is resistant to most of the common azoles like fluconazole. It is also resistant to verinacazole, then also the polines, and so this means that the most commonly used antifungals are they don't work against this Candida, and it becomes a challenge because, as I said, it leads to systemic infection, leading to death in many cases. So identification becomes a challenge, and because of its multi-drug resistance, it needs to be identified quickly. And once you know that you're dealing with Candida auris, then there are a lot of protocols being set up now, and many different antibiotics are available for treating. Antifungals are available for treating it. So we have developed media for this, where you can easily see that on the same plate, the left hand side is a mixed culture of Candida species, and on the right hand side we've taken a pure culture, but on the left these colonies are also present, and they can be easily differentiated. So Candida auris looks has a typical colony characteristic of a pink colored colony, and can be differentiated from the typical albicans or the regular candidas which are usually found out of human samples. And with the supplement we have used, it makes the media very selective and specific for Candida auris. So this is one of the media which is right now being used in many hospitals in India, and this is a very new research or new product from our portfolio. To give you so the idea of bringing this up is because that we keep looking at the latest MDR strains, and we keep developing newer media. So another such example is for Klebsiella. So carbapenem resistant Klebsiella is a big challenge today also, and again this is same thing, nosocomial infection. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that even Candida auris is also a nosocomial infection. Nosocomial infections are the infections which are caused through an hospital environment. So if you are either admitted for some other medical problem, or if you are just visiting an hospital in a critical care or ICU, if you're a carrier of these multi-drug resistant bacteria, or if you're not, you probably can pick it up. So hospitals are the places where you can get nosocomial infections. So we have a media for carbapenem-resistant Klebsiella. It is called as a KPC agar, and this is also gives a very typical Klebsiella pneumoniae. So this ATCC BA1705 strain is a carbapenem-resistant strain, and it gives very typical bluish green colonies, which are easily differentiated from Pseudomonas, which is usually
It's
found
4
along
o'clock.
with this when you're trying to identify or isolate Klebsiella species, MDR Klebsiella. So we all have been reading, fighting, dealing with MRSA for more than a decade now, and it has still not been able to tackle with. So, and of course, an epidemiological approach is always helpful when it comes to nosocomial infections. So, if a hospital knows that a certain ward has a lot of infections or has a lot of incidences of a certain pathogen, then they should be studying this. So MRSA has been reported to be carried around even by the medical staff or even by the non-medical staff of the hospitals around into the hospital. So this is a very important problem, and this has created a major havoc globally, including in India. So this is one typical media which we have developed, and it has been used globally. So on this media, you can again, with the help of few antibiotic supplements, we can easily identify and differentiate various species of multi-drug resistant staphylococcus. So after most important part, as I mentioned before, is the identification, is the antibiotic sensitivity after you have identified the bacteria. So in this, we have various products, and most of these products, all of these products are manufactured as per the guidelines of UCAS and CLSI. UCAS is from Europe and CLSI is from USA, where every year they come up with new guidelines for antibiotic resistance and sensitivity. For those who are unaware of what these guidelines are, they are basically the new antibiotics which come in from manufactured by pharma companies. If they are launched into the market, when a doctor has to administer an antibiotic for a certain infection, he needs to know that which antibiotic is effective against this particular isolate or infectious causing bacteria or fungus. So he has to. So when it comes to the microbiology lab, the microbiologist has to grow it on a plate and then use various antibiotics. The choice of the antibiotics, of course, depends on the isolate you're working with. That's the most critical part, because you then choose that, okay, if I'm working with a staph aureus, there is a whole family of antibiotics to be effective against it. So you choose those antibiotics and find out that which is most effective. And finding out the most effectiveness is the guidelines laid down by these regulatory agencies, who say that, okay, if you get a zone of this size, that means this particular organism is either sensitive to it or resistant to it. And depending on if the organism is sensitive, then the microbiologist can recommend that particular drug for the clinician to use against this infection. So this is how AST works. In this process, what is most important is the choice of the drug, and the whole environment has to work very efficiently. So this method is classically called as the Kirby-Bauer method. And in this Kirby-Bauer method, you have to use a media which doesn't, it has to support growth, but doesn't have to give extra growth, otherwise the antibiotics would not work. The media also has to be in such a way that it won't interfere into the working or in the functioning of the drug molecule which is present in the antibiotic discs. So that is one part. The second part is the antibiotic discs and the various different products used to check these zones. So everything has to be properly quality controlled before use. It has to be calibrated. Yes, the organisms used have to be calibrated, because you need to check whether your antibiotics with a standard organism and a standard medium are giving the right zones recommended by these guidelines. And if they are giving you the right zones with the standard organisms, then only you can expose a pathogen onto that plate so that you get the exact reading, and that reading is considered as the right reading. So these are all regulated by NABL in India now. In the last one and a half decade, the government of India has enforced NABL accreditation for all the clinical microbiology labs, which makes it mandatory for all the microbiologists to calibrate and test whatever raw material they are using in the laboratory, which is a good thing for us because now the products which we make are tested and are used in the right methodology as recommended. So apart from antibiotic sensitivity, there is one very important aspect which has emerged, and High Media has again come up with an entire product line and a portfolio to assist this. So after one has established that which is the right drug or which is the most sensitive antibiotic for a certain pathogen, the second question arises is how much has to be administered. So let's say for a particular standard strain of MRSA, there could be a certain antibiotic which is effective, but in a certain outbreak after a few months, it has become probably resistant to that antibiotic, and the doctor has to give her the clinician has to administer a stronger dose, a higher dose. To establish that, we have come up with a product line called as MIC, or to establish the exact amount of antibiotic it is called as a minimum inhibitory concentration. So in MIC, you estimate at what concentration the drug is killed or is killed by the antibiotic. So the doctor should know that this is the minimum concentration. So how higher he can go from that? He should not go near it or below it, because if he's administered at a lower concentration, then again there will be more drug resistance and the bacteria becomes more resistant to that particular drug. So the doctor has to decide that, okay, this is the MIC, then maybe I should go a little bit higher than MIC and administer drug. So it not only will kill the bacteria, but the patient also can recover faster, and in the future there won't be multi-drug resistant strains arising out of it. So we have seen a lot of things which have emerged out of multi-drug resistance. Now, I'm sorry, there is a typographic mistake, but typical resistant phenotypes such as ESBL, this is supposed to be ESBL, not ES, there's a type mistake. So ESBL, we know extended spectrum beta-lactamase, metallo-beta-lactamase, vancomycin intermediate Staph aureus. So these are different multi-drug resistance which has emerged. I don't want to get into the genetic part of it, where which genes are triggered and why this, what is the biochemistry behind why this drug resistance have caused. But these are a few examples, and this will, just to give you an example, I'm telling you, and this also promotes antibiotic stewardship. So this means proper management, proper study, proper administration of drugs, and a better control over the whole challenge of multi-drug resistance. Apart from that, we have developed this new product line which is called as the High MIC plate kit. This is much easier to use. You just inoculate your organism, pure cultured organism, you incubate and you just see the color change. Here you don't have to go through the whole process of preparing the media, because this already contains media in it, and it just gives you growth in very less time. So the handling is reduced, the errors of experimental errors will also reduce. The reason I'm talking more about antibiotic MIC is because MIC is the step ahead, because we all are kind of aware now that what are the drugs we need to use against certain infections. Once you know what infection you're dealing with, the problem arises that at what concentration the drug has to be used, and this is where all these cultural techniques are very important, and most important, they are affordable to Indian hospitals. A lot of automation has come in where unfortunately they use automated machines where only 3 or 4 concentration of antibiotics are used to find a MIC, which is unfortunately not the right way or the actual way to study the antibiotic, to find the MIC. Sorry. So a lot of machines where they just culture the bacteria over a short period of time and run it to 3 concentrations, and just by those 3 concentrations they establish whether it is resistant or not. So this classical method is still the gold standard for the proper and scientific determination of MIC values. I will go ahead with some limitations right now of challenges faced by clinicians. So these are the typical methods which are used in our day-to-day processes. Microscopy, PCR, nucleotide sequencing, metabolic capabilities, resistance to antibiotics, mono and polyclonal antibodies. So these have challenges such as they limit ID of microbial species. They are complicated processes, most of them. That they take a lot of time and they are expensive. So we have come up with another new technology or new portfolio in our product line, which we have partnered with Autobio. And here, this is called as a multi-TOF. And I will just go through this multi-TOF. This is again an automated process, but this doesn't involve identification using molecular methods. The challenge with molecular methods, unfortunately, is we could, if not properly processed, we probably will be looking at a non-viable nucleotide. But in this, you can actually do this by on a viable bacteria or a viable isolate. So, what are the good things about it? Is extensive usage in various this thing. So if you look at the classical way, initially we started with biochemical identification like chromogenic media, selective media. Then we moved to 16S RNA identification, and now the next forefront is multi-TOF. So I will explain you the whole process of MALDI. What does multi-TOF mean? Matrix assisted laser desorption ionizing time of light mass spectrometry. So we all know that every bacteria is unique in a way of its genetic makeup, and also the way the cell wall of every bacteria is. So every cell wall or every bacteria has a certain combination of proteins on its cell wall or inside it. And so when you run your bacterial culture on a MALDI, what it does is basically, if you see on the left hand side, your sample is mixed with a matrix, which is nothing but a polymer. The moment a laser hits your matrix with the ionizing source, the proteins in that matrix, or the proteins in your sample, sorry, they're liberated from the sample, and under vacuum, all these proteins are separated. So if you look at the left hand side here, you will see all the separated proteins of the cell. It could be a Staph aureus, and you get a complete array. And this profile is in the database, which has been matched before that. Okay, Staph aureus has these 300 proteins which constitute a certain species of Staph aureus, and this matches. So if your sample has the same matching profile, then you are confirmed that this is a Staph aureus. So what is the advantage? So let me just quickly go through this, how it is done in terms of, that was a scientific part of it, but the actual day-to-day protocol is like this. You just pick up a pure colony, put it on a slide, which is nothing but a metal slide, and you add matrix to it, you can actually pick up a colony with a loop or a tip or a toothpick, sterile toothpick, and just put it on it, growth on it, and add the matrix to it. Just run it through a MALDI-TOF. The whole running process is anything between 1 to 2 minutes, and in 2 minutes you get a spectrum analysis, and the analysis is linked to the database, and it gives you the result in another few seconds. The most important aspect of this is the consumable used in this entire process is only the matrix. Because if you look at the transfer matrix or the target slide, it is a metal slide. It's a 96 well slide, which means at one time you can run 96 samples, 96 different bacteria, 96 different fungi, and you only have to use a matrix. Once your analysis is done, you can just wash the slide and reuse the slide. So your cost comes down to a few rupees. Actually, paisa. I mean, we in our lab we've come down to around 30 to 40 paisa per analysis. So and the database is I'll talk about it. So some USPs about the machine. It has a very high resolution, improved slide positioning and stability, immediate initial vacuum stabilization. So these are a few points, but coming back to the database, it has a database of around 888 genus, 4,226 species, and 14,125 strains. And this is built on the basis of the isolates, ATCC strains, and the good part about this machine is if you have certain organism and you want to store that data, you can store that organism in your database, and in the next time, whenever you get a similar organism, it is going to give you the data. So you can also start building up on your own data. So this, yes, and this definitely works for multi-drug resistance identification, not for antibiotic sensitivity patterns in terms of MIC, but it can definitely give you that multi-drug resistant Staph aureus. It will give you a certain array of proteins, and that can be identified. So a lot of multi-drug resistant organisms also can be identified through this process. So with this, I am sorry, I had to I took 5 minutes more than what I was supposed to speak, but I ran through it as fast as I can, and it is a very big topic I had to deal with. I have tried my best to concise it and try to make it more informative, since I was told that there are going to be a lot of students along with senior microbiologists. So I had to give a different level of information, and I hope I was able to give that information. So I'm ready for any questions. If you have, please let me know.
So, first of all, thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. Really, it was one of interesting session because I've also themed it microbiology. So it was also very interesting for me. So, dear all, thank you so much. Stay tuned here. If you have any questions or clarification, simply put your questions directly to Q&A tab that's showing in the left side of your screen, and we'll convey a question with Dr. Rahul, and he will answer the same. So even you can raise your hand, and we will allow to talk, and you can directly ask your question with Dr. Rahul. So, sir, I'm audible to you, Dr. Rahul, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, sir. Here is first question for us. The question is asked by Novira. Sir, she's asking which antibiotic can destroy peptidoglycan of bacterial cell wall? Sir, I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah, she's asking which antibiotic can destroy peptidoglycan of bacterial cell wall.
So all the beta-lactamases, which include beta-lactams, which includes the basic penicillin class, the first generation penicillins, can destroy the peptidoglycan of
So thank you so much, sir. Thanks for answer. Hope Novira you're satisfied with the answer. Thank you again for asking the question. Sir, another question we have from Kusum. Sir, she is asking, does synaptic acid purity affect multi-sensitivity? What factors affect its sensitivity?
Can you please
Acid.
repeat the
Does
question?
synaptic acid purity affect multi-sensitivity? What factors affect its sensitivity? This is asking, sir.
You talked about certain acid.
Yeah.
So basically, I will get back to you. But if you look at the process, I'm still not able to understand the name of the acid. But if this acid is being produced by the particular organism, if you can just repeat the name or type somewhere the name of the acid.
Kusum, better can you ask directly to Dr. Rahul, if possible? Kusum, am I audible to you? Kusum, are you there? So might be she's not here. Anyone, if you have any questions or clarification with this whole session, you can directly ask with the sir, and we will even you can directly put on Q&A time and we'll convey your question with sir.
So
Is
just
there any-
answer Kusum's question. I mean, I will. I don't know the name of the acid, but basically, what happens is when you fire a laser onto the bacteria or the fungi which are in the matrix, you disrupt.
Yeah, she's asking like sir. She's asking. We all know increased incidents of AMR. It's quite hard to detect sometimes. How is the right way to deal with the such situation?
So there are basically the right way. It's not a solution which can be followed by a microbiologist. It has to be taken at a various levels. So it starts first by identification of your multi-drug resistant bacteria or fungi. Second is the right choice of drug which has to be recommended to the clinician, and of course along with the concentration if possible. Then the whole process goes into the hands of the clinicians, where he or she has to administer the drug to the patient. And not only that, every patients which come or they come to the hospital with similar kind of infections or similar kind of symptoms have to be studied, and samples have to be sent back to the microbiology lab before administering any antibiotic. Unfortunately, in India, this problem has become acute because neither the patient nor the doctor wants to wait till the antibiotic sensitivity data has come back from the lab. So, which takes usually 2 or 3 days. So nobody wants to wait; they just want to take the most affordable or the most accessible antibiotic they have, and get on with their life. This is okay when you're dealing with some simple upper respiratory tract infections or some wound infection. This is fine, but the moment you get, and so basically this leads to the because if you've taken a drug which is probably has had effect on the infection, but it has caused some multi-drug resistance into the bacteria, which now which now is no more dead, which is now no more effective, or which is no more uh, controlled with this antibiotic which you already have taken. But if you pass on this infectious bacteria to a person who are immunocompromised, like who are having cancer treatment or who have some other kind of disease, and those patients might face a much more severe and acute response to this in terms of infection. So when these patients are administered these drugs, they won't work because it's already jumped one cycle. And I don't want to get into the basics of it, where there are a lot of genetics involved. Like they pick up these resistance genes from the environment, which are available on plasmids and things like that. And it's completely different part of it, which I don't want to get into it. But these are usually induced by the wrong use of antibiotics. And once these these bacteria or these bugs have become resistant bugs, when they move on to other patients or other populations which are compromised or which are in the hospitals, then these drugs don't work. So this is a big cycle, and right from the patient to a microbiologist to the doctor, everybody has to be aware that you should not be taking any antibiotic given to you. You should always go in for culturing your sample, and then only as a society we can take control of this disease. So the most important onus lies on the doctor. He has to take the decision. He has to bite the bullet and say, no, you will have to wait for 2 days. I will control your parameters. I'll see to it that you don't get fever. I'll see to it that you don't have any other acute symptoms. But you will have to send your sample to the lab to be tested for antibiotic resistance or antibiotic sensitivity. And after that, I will administer drugs. So this is a decision which I already mentioned in the second slide, where the government is now really concerned, because it takes a big economical toll. And when I say economical toll, is something which we all have seen in the last 12 months, that what an economical toll an infection like coronavirus has caused to the entire world. So of course the effect of multi-drug resistance is multifold, but it is spread over many years. So it is the clinician's onus to whether to send a sample to the lab and get it tested and then administer drug. So these are the few disciplines which everybody, right from the patient to the doctor, both have to follow, and then this is something that we can bring this under control. And the second important point in this whole process is the nosocomial infection part of it. Unfortunately, 80 to 90% of the clinicians, especially the surgeons, refuse to accept the fact that they themselves are the carriers of most of the multi-drug resistant organisms like MRSA and things like that. They have to be aware. So this is a very simple and example I'll give you. If you go to any hospital in this country, I'm talking about a smaller hospital, not a bigger hospital. You go to a small hospital, maybe a 10-bedded, 30-bedded, 40-bedded. You always have to remove your shoes outside and you go in. But if you see any doctor who walks in, always wears his shoes and goes in, because he's a doctor. He's like a god, and he's unaware, and he behaves like he cannot carry any infection, and he's a doctor. So I have visited so many hospitals, and I have a lot of friends who are my surgeons, and they who are head of departments of surgeries, and they say it is a nightmare trying to convince these clinicians that please get aware, please see that whatever patients we are working on, let us send samples to the microbiology department and see what infections we are getting, keep a tab, and then accordingly collectively take decisions on how to administer antibiotics to these patients. Otherwise, it becomes a challenge. So it's a multi-pronged approach to deal with this thing, and it is most important, as I said, the clinicians have to take the onus, then only it can be handled properly. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thanks for this very informative topic again, and hope you're satisfied with the answer. So thanks again. Thank you so much for asking the question. And yes, just a moment. Chirag, you want to ask something? I'm just allowing to talk with sir. You can directly ask your question with sir. Chirag, now you can directly ask your question with sir. Chirag, I'm audible to you. Chirag is there?
Yes, sir. Sir, can I show you my video screen off?
Sorry? Chirag, I'm not getting you. You can directly ask your question with sir.
I cannot show screen, sir.
You can I'm able to hear you. You can speak your clarification, Chirag. I'm able to hear you. Your question, your voice is go to Dr. Rahul. You can speak. think he's went off. Is there any question? If you have any questions or clarification, you can simply write here, and we will convey your question with sir. Yeah, Navira, you will get certificate after the sessions by Monday or Tuesday. Definitely, you will get session. Sir, there is one more question for this, like multi-drug resistant bacteria and multi. She's asking like, what can we do in emergency cases? The same questions asked by that girl. She's again asking, sir.
So
as AMR detection takes long time.
Yeah. So now when you talk about emergencies, there are different parts of different cases of emergencies. So let's say there's a trauma patient who has come in with a accident. So in any medical, see, I'm not a clinician, so I'll try my best to answer it as a microbiologist. So any medical profession or any medical doctor, the first important aspect is to control the vitals and then make the patient stable. So as long as the patient is breathing, there is no injury in terms of blood clots in his brain, or the blood is flowing properly, all his organs are functioning. That is the emergency part, which is initially taken care of, where usually antibiotics are not, they don't come into picture. This is when it comes to trauma. So usually it is it is post injury. So let's say a patient comes with a car accident and he has cut his hand or cut his leg, and so the doctor is going to go suture him up, clean him up, see to it that the blood supply stops, and then he will administer a basic antibiotic, because right now there is no infection set in as of now. He'll just administer a basic antibiotic and say, fine, usually it's a skin cut, so I'm going to give you a certain antibiotic so it doesn't cause any infections caused by the skin bacteria or skin pathogens. And that's how the patient goes ahead. If the patient who's come in with a multiple fractures or a multiple accident or multiple trauma, then he's usually in the hospital post multiple surgeries where he has a chance of catching the infection. In such cases, you have some time where you can easily send a sample post surgery, whether he's picking up fever. If he's picking up fever, then you send his blood to be cultured. If you can't see any particular wound which is being infected, then if you see if there is septicemia which has occurred, and then if there is septicemia, then you definitely have to culture it and find out. The other kind of emergency in terms of infections usually is if the person has tuberculosis which has been undetected, and if he's walking around for many days, months, and suddenly the onset comes in and he still hasn't figured out, and there is breathlessness and things like that. In this case, again, the doctor will go and check and control his vitals, make him stable, give him artificial, put him on a ventilator and things like that, make him stable, take his sputum sample. These are very extreme emergencies which usually don't occur, but I'm just giving you extreme emergencies. So they always bring him down, put him on vital support systems, and then they can send a sample to the lab and check for drug resistance or not. So this is how usually it is done. Where it is missed out in emergencies is people, along with the life-saving drugs or the life-saving treatment, start administering antibiotics there and then. So because they feel scared that if this person has come in with a trauma, the person has come in with a infection, he's definitely going to pick up something over a period of time in the hospital. So they start right away without even seeing that he's infected or not. So that is always a problem. So if you go to an hospital with some kind of orthopedic problem, they will start you on an antibiotic right away. Let's be precautious, which is also okay, but as long as you don't go in for a third or a fourth generation antibiotic, which can so prescribing a second generation or a fourth generation antibiotic doesn't lead to multi-drug resistance, because that, at least if the infection is there or can occur, if it is not taken care by the first and the second generation antibiotic, you always have the options to go for the higher generation ones, which eventually after culturing can be established that, okay, I had this infection post trauma or post accident, this occurred, but the antibiotics which the doctor had given didn't take care of it, so then maybe I should culture it and see whether the higher generation antibiotics will take care of it or not.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for answering and hope you're satisfied with the answer. And still, if you have any more clarification, you can directly write to me and we'll forward your clarification with Dr. Rahul and he would be happy to answer the same. If there is any more questions or clarification regarding any of high media products and profiles, you can directly write here or simply write to me and we will convey your question and each clarification with high media and they would be happy to reply you instantly. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you so much and hope that you're satisfied and you'd be happy with this whole presentation. And thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Rahul sir, and thank you, Dr. Girish Mahajan, for this initiative and like scheduling this session.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate again for coming here and listening on a Saturday afternoon. And we all have to take a message back that even the government is very serious, that we have to take microbiology very seriously before we have another ridiculous outbreak like Corona coming into our country.
Dear, sir, one more request here in our attendees, few of master's students or PhD students of microbiology. So what is your last message for them to start a career as a microbiologist, where to go and from where they should start?
So since we are speaking on a clinical microbiology fora, there is a new trend which has come into India in the last few years, which is infectious diseases. There is an MD microbiology which has been there for many years, which is the most neglected branch of medicine, where MD microbiology will end up as intensivists or doing something because nobody gave them that due respect. But now there is a whole new faculty of infectious diseases which has come in from the West into India. So if you look at any big hospital in our country has an infectious diseases specialist. So infectious disease specialist has multiple jobs. Of course, this infectious disease specialist is a doctor. He's a clinical doctor who has gathered information of microbiology over years of experience and understanding the subject. Now, all these infectious diseases doctors, they are not up to date when it comes to the laboratory aspect of this infection. They know only the clinical aspect and they rely heavily on microbiologists who work in the laboratory to give them this information that what are the new, if these are the infections which have sent to the lab, what are the trends, what are the phenotypic characteristics, what are the antibiotic sensitivity patterns. So this has given a lot of significance to microbiological laboratories in our country now. So working into a microbiology laboratory in big hospitals, and I'm sure this government always, when it has declared that there is an emergency, then they are going to set up, I'm sure they will set up some system where the Indian population can handle this problem of multi-drug resistance. Which definitely, because at the end of the day, any infectious disease doctor has to go back to a microbiology lab. And there will be a lot of microbiology labs coming up. So I would only recommend that two aspects of microbiology are very important in clinical microbiology today. One is the epidemiological aspect, which is very neglected. So as students, you should get into the epidemiology. This includes statistical studies, how an outbreak has to be covered, if there is a certain pattern of diseases. This is an epidemiological study, and that is very critical as a microbiologist to study and understand, more than study, understand that how statistical analysis of bacterial infections in an area, population or an outbreak has to be carried out. And we all came to know the significance of this epidemiological study after coronavirus, because in coronavirus we had stalwarts like Dr. Ganga Khedkar, who used to give us information that, and they are basically epidemiologists, they are virologists, but they are virologists who has picked up this knowledge of epidemiology over the years, and they are able to guide. And so this kind of study, so every microbiologist can take a certain kind of disease or a certain kind of pathogen and become a specialist in that as a PhD program. But the moment you add epidemiology to your research, it has a very good characteristic to it. And more than the characteristic to it, it gives you the knowledge and the authority over it and the understanding of the disease. the second aspect of which which needs to be administered or needs to be studied properly is the culturing part of pathogens. Unfortunately, because of budget and because we have become into a developing economy, a lot of laboratories have got into automated processes. In the automated processes, they don't figure out that what can go wrong or what is probably not being correct. I would not try to name any manufacturer or any instrument here, but they just want to load up the sample onto the machine and they just want to print out of the machine. They don't care that whether this is accurate or what identification or the AST pattern which has come out. And this is something I'm speaking from my experience. I have spoken to a lot of microbiologists in this country and they said, I don't care, I just have to load the sample into the machine. The machine gives me a printout, I sign the printout and hand it over to the clinician. So that is something which is not right. You should be able to understand that what are the challenges of these new technologies, and in case if there is a false positive and or even a false negative, how it should be handled or how it should be caught. I mean, this kind of mistakes, how they should be properly administered. Otherwise, it becomes otherwise it's like doing a technician's job. It is not a job of a scientist. So there's a bright future. I hope the government will put in more focus on microbiology testing for clinical laboratories, and this will definitely give new. And if not, you can always work in hospital or private microbiology laboratories and try to encourage and spread information of multi-drug resistance and keep an eye on what's happening globally, because now it is not anymore. We've seen this very nice, very properly in the last 12 months that nothing is localized anymore. Any disease is become globalized. So we have to keep knowing and studying that if a certain disease is spread in UK, China, Japan, it won't take a long time to come into our country. So always keep reading, try to understand what's happening in your field, and be ready if something comes to us.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your info. And really, it was wonderful session today. So, is there any questions or clarification? Finally, I'm asking. You can simply put there on your Q&A tab and we'll convey your question with sir. Otherwise, you can directly mail to me, and after the session, you will get an email link. You can reply your questions or clarification there too, and we will convey your question with the iMedia team, and they will respond you back. So, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today. So, it's good to go, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So, stay tuned here with Microbiology India. We will inform you again if you have any microbiology schedule in coming weeks. So, thanks again for joining us today. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.